And thank you guys on the phone. Thank you very much for muting your phones. Appreciate that. We're going to have a look today at a report that has been done by Deloitte Access Economics for the Hunter region, for the Regional Development Authority in the Hunter Valley. And we have in the studio today, we have Gay Hart, AM, who is the Chair of the Regional Development Australia Board for the Hunter region. We have Todd Williams, who is the CEO of RDA Hunter, and we have Dr. Rick Symes, the author of the report, partner in Deloitte Access Economics. And in addition to Dr. Symes' extensive work in both fiscal policy at federal and state government level and economic analysis and strategy work that is well known, he also has been involved a lot in the growing impact of the digital economy in Australia. And he's authored a number of significant reports recently in that area. So, and was very much involved in Deloitte's own thought leadership report on digital disruption that we released at the end of last year, Short Fuse Big Bang. Gay is the chair of RDA board for the Hunter region, as I've said, and throughout her career she's held leadership positions in government, business and the community, including being the former director of the Hunter TAFE, and she was also chair of the Australian Council for International Development and a member of the Foreign Ministers' Aid Advisory Council, for which service she was awarded the Centenary Federation Medal. And her Order of Australia is for her contribution to Australia's bicentennial celebrations, but I think you're particularly proud of the work that you did at UNICEF as well, Gay.
Yeah.
Gay, I might hand over to you to introduce Todd Williams and just give us a little bit of a context of the report and how it came about and what you're hoping to do with it.
Thank you, Louise. Yes, I'm very happy to introduce Todd. He's the Chief Executive Officer of RDA Hunter, Regional Development Australia Hunter. We're one of 55 such RDA committees around Australia, and generally we work within regions, with government, with business and community groups to support the development of those regions. Todd has been recognised by the local business chamber as one of the leading young CEOs of the region, and it's with his leadership and the support and direction of a very strong, a very committed and diverse board, really, of the RDA Hunter board. We've commissioned Rick Symes and his team to do this report. It's a foresighting study. It's entitled Prospects and Challenges for the Hunter region. It analyses the current state of the Hunter economy in the context of the broader Australian economy and internationally. And it does this at a time, a critical point, a significant point of transition in the Hunter. It considers the influences that we are expecting to impact on the Hunter in the 20 years ahead. And it looks at where we might go, what are our strategic options for the future. So we've welcomed this report. It's a basis with which we will now work with business within the Hunter and outside, with leading agencies and with the regional communities to go forward. It provides a framework for the next 20 years.
Thanks very much, Gay. We might hand over to Rick to run through some of the findings, and we are open to questions as they arise throughout the presentation, so please feel free, and those on the phone, you just unmute and ask the question. That would be fine.
Thanks very much, Louise and Gay. We were very pleased to be able to do this report. The report's quite a heavy tome. You were sent a copy of it, and so I'm sure that you've read it all by now. What I'd like to do is just go through a few of the highlights. And so there are 8 or so slides here that I'll go through. But please, as Louise suggested, if you would like to ask questions on the way through, don't hesitate to do so. There are a few main messages in the report. The first one is probably that the Hunter economy is a large economy, and it's a diverse economy. Because of its size and diversity, it means that most of the things, most of the pressures, most of the challenges, most of the opportunities that it's going to face over the next couple of decades are going to be fairly representative of the types of challenges and opportunities that the Australian economy is going to be facing. So, to a large extent, when you look at particularly the services part of the Hunter economy, it's reflective of the nation. That said, people on the phone can tell what slides we're up to or not.
We're on slide 5.
So I should be letting people know. So on slide 5, while it is representative of the country, if anything, we see the Hunter's prospects, economic prospects, to be a little bit stronger than the nation as a whole. That's partly because of the nature of its, well, it's largely because of the nature of its attributes, and I'll get into those a little bit later. But it's got a potential, and that potential is based on just the extent of the natural resources that it has. It's a centre for a lot of electricity generation and utilities in the state. It's got a strong base for the defence industry, so both defence forces but also the industry around it. Quite a few different areas of the Hunter have different aspects of the tourism market, which gives not only a focus but also some diversity within that. The agriculture is strong, and then it's got a large urban centre. So on slide 6, some of the key structural features for the state, it's got roughly 40% of the coal's resources, and that's a large part of the Hunter economy, and that's going to shape a lot of the Hunter's growth overall over the next decade or so. But there is an important time dimension there that I'll get into. There are a lot of other industries that are supportive of either mining or services or whatever, and so, for example, construction, transport, wholesale trade combined account for roughly 15% of the Hunter's economy. The single largest employer in the Hunter, as with the country overall, is health. So 25,000 full-time employed equivalents, and education and training. So quite a diverse structure. Looking ahead, and this I guess is the next main message that I want to leave with people, is that over the next couple of decades, particularly the next decade, there are really very strong forces that are going to be affecting the Australian economy overall and the Hunter economy in particular. And those strong forces relate to what's going on with Asia and what's going on with technology. And I'll get into both of those in a moment. But those forces are going to lead to changes in the shape of our economies, how competition works, where our business works, location of business, a whole suite of things. And the changes are going to be at least as profound as the ones we saw, for example, coming out of the large changes in the 1980s and 90s to do with microeconomic reform, which injected a lot of competition through the economy. We're going to see changes at least as large as those, which represent some transitional issues. How do you manage the change, and how do you take advantage of the opportunities? Turning to, how is that going to affect the industrial structure of the economy over the next couple of decades? Mining is growing quite rapidly at the moment, and it's going to continue given just what's in the pipeline and all the rest of it, and given the nature of the demand from Asia, is going to continue to do so for at least the next decade or so. The further you look out, the more likely that's going to be having to be replaced by other activities. But for the next decade, the growth there is very important. Similarly, the nature of the ageing of the population and what that means for healthcare and the like means a lot more of our economy is going to be devoted to that. And on the other side of that, it means less is going to be in manufacturing and a whole suite of other things. So there's a rebalancing going on. Overall, on slide 9, the Hunter region economy is expected to grow by around 75% over the period that we're looking at, and at an average growth rate of 2.4% a year compared with the rest of New South Wales around 2.1. That mightn't sound like all that large a difference, but 0.3% difference compounded over that period is a large difference, i.e. the Hunter economy does look like it's going to be growing or has the potential to grow in a much more solid way than the rest of the state. There will be differences around from an industry structure in different regions and all the rest of it, but if we look at the two natural ways that the Hunter is viewed when people are looking at it, the upper and lower Hunter, similar growth in both of those regions on average. The major, on slide 10, the major influences shaping the Hunter. I talked about Asia, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a second. Talked about the digital economy. It's also what happens with infrastructure, which is largely initiated by what the community and what government sees as needed to underpin a lot of the other economic activity going on. And there are other influences, including the ageing one I mentioned, the move to a less carbon-intensive economy. Those longer-term, more protracted changes that aren't hitting hard, they aren't hitting as fast and leading to as rapid change as the digital economy, for example, might be, and Asia might be. But over time, the cumulative effect of them will be quite significant. Turning to the integration of Asia, clearly in Australia at the moment we've got the symptoms of a two-speed economy. The demand from China, India, increasingly Indonesia and other parts of Asia for our natural resources is having a big impact on the economy. The Hunter is on the right side of that two-speed economy at the moment, and on average, while there are differences within the Hunter, on average it's benefiting quite profoundly. And that's going to continue for the next decade or so. The further you look out though, if you think of the Asian story, what we're looking at there is demand for natural resources today morphing into a much larger middle class income group demanding a lot more services, demanding a lot more education services or tourism services or professional services or whatever. And so one of the challenges for the Hunter and the economy, Australian economy overall, is how we transform the focus and the effort to one from just supplying a lot of resources to being able to benefit on the services side in a much broader way. On the digital, pardon me, on slide 12 on the digital economy, the digital economy makes it sound like this is all about ICT. Really, we shouldn't be thinking of it in terms of ICT. What it really is about is transforming how society is organised, how the economy is organised, how business is organised. So how a business organises its workforce, where it locates and the like, how it relates to suppliers, how it relates to customers. So it's that transformation that's going on at the moment, or starting at the moment. And indeed, as consumers and as society sort of become much more comfortable with using devices and the digital economy and all the rest of it, is forcing change in business. And there are challenges to make sure that you take advantage of that, and there are a lot of opportunities.